Thank you very much. We're here tonight for our Fireside Chat, second Tuesday each month, 6:30 p.m. Welcome, Scouters. I didn't bring out a vintage coffee cup tonight, so maybe one of you folks have got a vintage one. The best one I've got is a 1983 Scoutorama from Oregon Trail Council. I'm still finding, oh, Scott's got something there. What's that one, Scott?
Camp Baker one. I
Camp
really
Baker.
When it's from.
Very good. Very good.
I've got one. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll show you mine, right? I got it. Okay. Very good. The we're starting to get some players now. Very good. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Our main point of conversation tonight, if we can get there, is concerning our Project 100, and it's just an idea about how do we cause ourselves to give 100% to scouting in whatever our roles happen to be. And Scott, you'd had some thoughts about this, and you and I have talked about this at length for several months now. Did you want to expand that a little bit, how you see that laying out?
Yeah, well, just to explain a little bit more, and then some people accuse me, Randy, of talking too much, so I'm going to let you carry a good portion of the load tonight. But
No.
Who would say such a thing?
I think Randy had an idea, and he said, I don't know how many of you actually read Trail Smoke and read my Scout Executives Minute from December, but it talked in there about Project 100. And so Randy had been thinking, and Randy, when he starts thinking, is very creative as far as I'm concerned, much more creative than I am. And he talked about this philosophy and this thought about Project 100. And he said, you know, it's great because we have Highway 101 and Highway 99 that go right through the middle of our council, that go through our council, historic highways. And if you average 101 and 99, it makes 100. So, you know, what do you think about Project 100? And he said, you know, maybe that key thing is taking Project 100, and I think we finished the year with 92 scout units in our council. So one of those goals that we would set was trying to achieve 100 units within our council. And so my response back to him, as we were, I think, emailing at that point, was, you know, that's great, but how does it help us achieve maybe some of the other goals that we're looking at? So we started talking about that, and again, he came back with some great responses, you know, and maybe at the district level, you know, and I think one of the questions was, you know, how do we get a unit leader, a den leader in one of our packs, or an assistant scoutmaster in one of our troops? How do we get them excited about Project 100? What does it mean to them? You know, do they care? They care about their unit. Do they care about, you know, us getting to 100 units as a council? And so that question came up, and so the discussion really kind of became, you know, initially it came to what would some of our goals be? And, you know, at the district level, our goals would be, or my goal would be, that we have 100% of those district positions filled. That would be my goal. And I think, you know, hopefully it'd be the goal of some of our district leadership as well. To some people, it may be, or a unit, it may be having 100% of those registered leaders be not only youth protection trained, but be position specific trained. And so we just continued to discuss that and talk about what some of those would be. And then really, bottom line, as we started talking about it, is it's more of a thought that, look, you guys, especially you guys that are on here tonight, you guys spend so much time scouting. My thought process was, I don't want to ask more of your time. You already dedicate so much time because of your passion for scouting and your commitment to scouting. You already donate or dedicate so much time to scouting. We just want all of our scouters to give 100% when they're donating that time or dedicating that time to scouting. In other words, how do we maybe take some of those leaders that are in a unit and maybe a part of the unit leadership because they missed a meeting and were volunteered, or they couldn't make a meeting and their spouse was there for them and said, oh yeah, my wife, my husband, they'll do that. And then a lot of times you see, when that kind of stuff happens, you see the kind of effort you would expect when something like that happens. So I think primarily to us, it was, how do we get all of our leaders, our 700 and some adult leaders that are working with council level, district level, and unit level, how do we get them excited about what they're doing in scouting? Does that kind of sum it up, Randy?
Yeah, I think so, Scott. I think that encapsulates it pretty well. From a strict business standpoint, it's all about incremental improvement. If we have 700 leaders out here that all make incremental improvements across the year in what they do with scouting and for scouting, that's an enormous upswelling and a great improvement on where we are today. That takes us toward our upper level goal of 100 units. That takes us toward getting 2,000 kids involved within the next 2 years. That improves our retention rate above 59% right now, which is all we're retaining right now, well below average for the nation. It gets us up to our 2% total available youth. So we're trying to figure out how to portray this, how to get the message out, and improve our overall scouting life. So that's so just several different ways of looking at the goal side of the world. So I asked the board the other day when we were talking about this, what their goals were for themselves, a la Project 100. And you got to look at it. Some of the folks like Gary Wildish are already really heavily involved in what he's doing. I mean, he's putting in a full-time effort in a volunteer position to get us back up and improved at Camp Baker. So there's an example where we're already getting close to maxing out what's possible. We wanted to hear from this group here. You represent the leadership emeriti for the council. How do you see this rolling out? What can we do to help create that groundswell of emotion and desire, get the passion out there so we improve our overall council and district unit performance? That's the concept. Any takers on this? Any thoughts come to mind?
And I would mention, we had a meeting yesterday with some people, Claudette, Randy, Rob, and I, and they asked, well, what is it about those people that are doing an excellent job? What is it that makes them stand out? And I think really the feedback we gave them are those two things: passion and commitment to doing a good job. And how do we, I guess, how do we develop that passion and commitment in all of our leaders across all levels of scouting in our council?
I think the toughest part is going to be trying to get these new leaders, because like you said, you don't want to keep asking the older leaders who've been doing it all along, getting them to buy in on this. we can't even really get them to attend the virtual roundtables. Can't get them to go to the trainings. We got to find some way to get them impassioned and wanting to do this. I don't know what that is, but I think that's the beginning key.
You know, one thing, see, now I'm starting to talk too much, Randy. One of the things in our meeting yesterday that was mentioned is, and I don't know what you guys' thought about this, McKay and Claudette and you guys, I just have to tell you, all of you that are involved in Roundtable, I think are doing a fantastic job at Roundtable. And you guys have probably heard me say this before, but I think one of the reasons I go to OA events is because I enjoy being with the people that are there. One of the reasons I go to scouting events is I enjoy being with the people that are there. And although, you know, a virtual roundtable helps everybody, you miss out on that face-to-face contact. And I'm really kind of thinking to myself that as we move out of COVID, we really need to start getting together face-to-face a little more often.
Yeah, good point. Good point. McKay, you had a thought here.
I do. You know, I really like this. I like this theme of the 100. And I think it's worthwhile to challenge each of our units to come up with their own 100% goal, because every unit's going to have a different need. Maybe for one, you know, one unit's going to be, hey, we want to have all of our youth, all of our cubs attend day camp this year, and that's our 100%. And for another unit, it's going to be, hey, we want 100% of our youth to get an advancement this year. And I think because it's broad enough, I think it's a great opportunity for us to let the units challenge themselves and figure out what their own 100 is going to be.
So it's a common conversation then across leadership is what you're suggesting, and simply asking what that means to them, what the challenge is.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, we can tell them what the council goals are. You know, we've kind of forced everybody into 100% YPT, and we'd love to have, you know, 100% trained, but maybe that's not what the unit needs. Maybe what their unit needs is some other 100% goal. And this is just a broad enough topic that we can let them challenge themselves. And if they choose their own goals, then they're going to have their own buy-in for it. And that'll give them better motivation to try to accomplish it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I think that by designating what their goal is, not only will it produce a benefit unique to that unit, but the investment by the people that created the goal is going to be so much more greater.
Rather than handing down, coming down the ladder from above, so to speak. Yep, I agree.
Ground up.
Yep.
And all I can add here is that in my experience, through all the years in scouting on and off, scouting seems to have always evaluated itself by clear, objective, empirical standards. They weren't always applied to the units, but Journey to Excellence was something that National put a great deal of effort and study into, obviously. And so our own troop has continued that through COVID, and it provides a very good framework to set goals for the unit in each of 11 areas at the troop level. But I understand what you're talking about. It still falls short in trying to bottle what the passion and commitment part. You know, you've got to achieve those 11 goals, whether it's at bronze, silver, or gold level, but you got to do it with a passion and commitment. That's a hard thing to bottle. But what I found is that the one place in scouting where goals were set, and Andy, you're pretty familiar with this, is at Wood Badge, when you work with your coach to set those goals for your ticket. And that's one of the things I always come back to, and it reminds me. And so, you know, do I have goals outside for our own troop of Journey to Excellence for the year ahead? Yes, you know, but, and I've been doing this for a while, but I decided this year, where our troop meeting started at 7 o'clock, we would have 2 deep leadership at the meeting place an hour in advance at 6 o'clock before every meeting for any scout who wants to come in with or without an adult, try to get 2 deep leadership there, who wants to work on advancement, so that the meeting is not splintered or people are not wanting to stay afterwards too late when the kids should be getting home, or to try to serve the needs of the kids who might drop out of scouting for whatever reason, who don't always consistently go on the outings. The old thought that the advancement should happen on the outings. Provide an opportunity for these kids to get involved and to progress. And, you know, so far since the first of the year, a few have showed up. The other goal that I found particularly important was to try to refine meeting plans, meet with the PLC twice a month rather than once a month, and put on quality meetings and work through the program features, the old Woods wisdom. And this, you know, that's one of the good things that have come out of, for me personally, come out of Roundtable, you know, as a new commitment to have meetings that are well planned, you know, and will retain the kids. And so maybe everybody's got to find their own goals, but those are just a couple of ideas of things. But I still believe that Journey to Excellence can be the foundational framework. You know, you've got to have some objective way to assess, you know, at the end of the year. Well, how did we do compared to the year before?
Yeah, that's real solid. Absolutely. So you've taken the large concept. You've already begun the application. That's just super. Now, if we can get that across 90 other units, we're starting to make some real headway here. Yeah. Mike, you've been quiet. Andy, Fred, appreciate you chiming in. Lee, you've got some thoughts.
I was just thinking that the breadth of the 100%, as Rush was talking, you know, I thought, wow, to start 100% of your meetings on time for a lot of units is a significant goal and would take some effort. And to have 2 deep leadership there, you know, 10 minutes before the doors are supposed to open for the youth, that's not a bad goal if that's something your unit lead needs. And this gives you the opportunity to say, you know, that's what we're going to do. We're going to see if we can, for 52 weeks, start every unit meeting on time. And it's measurable. You know what it takes. You can find the resources available. And if you miss, okay, you pick it up and start over again. I love that, Rush. The fact that you're willing to contribute more hours to meet a specific need of the youth in your program makes it even better. But just standalone, start the meeting on time, end the meeting on time. Wow, what a good thing. And what a fine thing to teach young men and young women.
You know, and I was just thinking, with you guys talking about this, McKay and Rush and Andy, you know, maybe that conversation, and Fred too, maybe that conversation isn't what's your 100, but what is your 1 to 3 100s for your unit. You know, maybe they don't maybe they have 3 different goals that they'd love to achieve as a unit. And maybe we have that conversation. What would it be? You know, talking about journey to excellence, Rush, some people would have said there were just too many, and that if you really are going to focus on improvement, you should really kind of focus on maybe 3 different areas. And that's why the 1 to 3 kind of popped up in my head. So
I think it's really important that as Claudette mentioned, this is a bottom up, and the conversation needs to be with unit leaders, I think. As you look back on your program, and you could change anything, what's the one thing you would change that you have the power to change?
Yes.
Obviously, if you got somebody who says, well, kids ought to only have to earn 18 merit badges to be Eagle Scouts, you haven't got the power to change that. But you do have the power to start your meetings on time. You do have the power to go camping or hiking or some sort of outdoor activity every month. I just think that idea of this is for us. This is what's going to make us better, make us have more fun, or help us have more fun. I think that's critical in selling this. Otherwise, it's going to seem, it's another one of those council programs from the guys who sit around in that big office in Eugene, and they don't know what it's really like out here in the brush.
I'd like to add something to this. I was a unit commissioner multiple times for many years, and I had more success helping a unit by going to the unit's committee meetings, not to the unit leadership, but to the committee. And I went to my unit's committee meetings every month. I also went to unit meetings, but I think I like the idea of this program, but I think we ought to take it to the committee.
yeah, I think, we're talking about passion and commitment. I think with the unit deciding their own goal, I look back to 3 or 4 years ago when we did Better with a Buddy and having that pizza party for units, and there were some units that was their goal, and they were going to achieve that, and they were going to have pizza at some point at the end of the year. So I just think if the unit's setting that goal and the committee is the group that determines that, Ed, you're right, that the passion and commitment to achieving that goal is going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well said, Ed. You're exactly right. Unit committee is crucial to the whole concept here, quite frankly. Mike, you look like you got some thoughts rattling around you'd like to get out.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just thinking back to when I was a scout leader, especially a scoutmaster and such. Even in our particular committee, we had there's always going to be 3 or 4 or 5 maybe that are in it, gung ho, and then the others are helping and such. But it just depends upon, most of the time it's your head leadership as to whether or not anything's going to go forward or not. If your Scoutmaster committee chair are enthused about it, it'll probably go through. But if they're not, someone else brings it up from the outside, they're going to kind of be beating their head against the wall trying to get some change in there. So I'm not quite sure how to, I agree with everybody that it needs to be from the bottom up, instead of coming down from Eugene or region or national.
Well, what if if unit commissioners or somebody went to committees and said, what are the 3 things, I'm just taking Scott's three things that we could do to improve the program for our youth? Okay, and then have some suggestions such as on-time starts of meetings, or make sure we do camp outs once a month, you know, but nothing that says, here's what the council wants you to do. But if we suggest that they come up with 3 goals to make the program better for their youth, and I don't know, end of subject.
No,
Well,
I think you're right on.
One of the suggestions I would make if it were me, because I don't think we do enough of this, is I wish every unit out there had a goal of making sure that every unit or every family in their area, 100% of those families in their area that were interested in being involved in scouting had the opportunity to join scouting. You know, I can't say that we do that in all areas of our council.
One thought I might pass on in that connection, Scott, is I think a simple goal for a unit to set would be simply 1 new scout a month. Where and how you find that scout, we can talk about for another hour. Lots of ideas. But if the unit had a goal of 1 new scout a month, recognizing you might not retain everybody, your unit can be sustained, and it's incremental. You're not gonna, you know, unless it's a very lucky, successful crossover, there's not going to be a dozen of them coming one night. Okay, so, you know, just a thought. That's the way I look at it. You know, if it goes for a month or 2 and nobody new has come by to check us out, then I start thinking about that.
Yeah, well, and I like that, Rush, and I think if, you know, maybe the conversation starts with the committee, but I, like with Troop 100, as far as I'm concerned, you know, Fred, with your unit, everybody that's on here that's associated with the unit, in my mind, that conversation starts with the adults, and we help guide our youth to maybe be involved in that goal as well. And if our youth have a goal of one new scout every month, then we all know that for the most part, they join scouting. Our youth join scouting because someone asked them to join. And it's not necessarily us on Zoom meeting tonight. It's other scouts that are asking them to do that.
Yeah. Eugene, you had a thought.
Well, you know, we were talking about having and getting youth in, and one of the biggest things I'm seeing right now is units are not checking their invitation management and that, because I'm seeing a lot of kids that are coming that are asking and interested, but they're not getting answers back from the units.
You know, that's a concrete example of something that's easy to implement. It's just to stay on top of the be a scout side of the world. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Should we then at our February socials simply ask the question of our units? What do you have in mind that would generate improvement within your unit? Rush, I really like your 100% on time. Absolutely. That's it's smart all the way through because it's measurable and timely the whole bit. Okay. So is this something we do at our February socials, and then follow up again and ask the question with the unit leaders, unit leadership again? That's kind of a rhetorical question, but that's sort of where I see this beginning to work. There's a comment on the chat, also has a possibility for personal 100 goals. You know, read Baden Powell this year. Get your own training up to speed. Invite somebody to come to a roundtable. Bring 1 new person to roundtable each month, as a for instance. Okay, So there's a bunch of different ways to manifest this. And all of it is incremental improvement spread across the entire council from the bottom up. Sir?
One of the things we can't forget with this is reporting and celebrating. You know, if our goal is, and I'll fall back to Rush too, because it's so easy. If our goal is to start all of our meetings on time, then in February, we're going to have a poster in the meeting room that says, we started 4 out of 5 meetings on time. Hooray for us. Let's see if we can make February 100%.
Yes.
Safety committees do this. You know, we've worked how many 100 hours, how many 1,000 hours without an accident. You know, it needs to not only be there, but it needs to be publicized and celebrated, whatever the goal is. And again, that's a unit thing. So if we're going to package this as continual product improvement, we need to be able to say to unit leaders, and don't forget to give credit where credit's due. Hooray for the moms and dads who get their kids to the meetings on time. That's just so important.
Well said. Well said. Not only establishing, but it's also recognizing and celebrating and picking ourselves up and moving ahead here. Yeah. And then we can also celebrate that at the council level as well. There's got to be a lot of different ways to do that. Thanks for the comments on the chat. Okay. Last, we're at about 10 minutes after the hour. I love the conversation. Let's continue on to the extent that we'd like to, but we are now 40 minutes into the evening. Okay. Other comments for the good of the order here.
Let me just share a recognition idea. Back in the brown shoe days, and I mentioned that Claudette and I had some conversation about that, and I'm not sure if Claudette understood what I was referring to, which was the days when the Boy Scouts of America licensed their shoes to the Buster Brown Shoe Corporation, and the sole of the shoe was entwined with rope and had merit badges printed on it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were fabulous.
Yeah.
As a kid, I really coveted a pair of those. But anyway, we had a bunch of leaders, and Ed will remember this, who carried around in their pocket a roll of flagging tape and a Sharpie pen. And if you saw a patrol or an individual scout doing something that was extraordinary, really cool, you could write, don't hatchet your chickens before they're counted award, and tear off a piece of that flagging and tie it on their patrol flag or tie it on the button of the kid's scout uniform. Again, that recognition. I don't know how many rolls of flagging tape I went through in my unit leader days, but simple, cheap, immediate, hooray, good for us. Some of you may have hackamore knots that I've tied over the years and given out. I was at a girls' camp, a church girls' camp, and gave one out for recognition for doing something. And I had scores of girls and adult leaders. Andy, what can I do to get one of those really cool knots? It doesn't have to be a knot. It just has to be, here, thanks for doing what you did. Simple stuff.
Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, the flagging tape, I haven't seen that used in 25 years.
But it worked, didn't it?
Yeah.
You think about if you were in one of those wood badge troops where they did that, you can think back on how those patrols really wanted to see who could get the most pieces of tape and in how many different colors before the next assembly.
Yeah.
Simple, cheap, but recognition. Hooray for us.
I agree. Any last closing words here before we cut off the recording?
I was thinking, we were talking about motivating the unit committees and such. I think one thing we do have to be careful of is when whoever goes in, our unit commissioners, ourselves, that we definitely want to do it in a way that they're not being perceived as having a bad unit. You know, when we say, what about, you know, doing the one camp out a month or whatever it is, you know, we have to be real careful on how that's presented, because there's going to be somebody that's going to take offense at it, thinking that they're not doing a good enough job or something. And so I just think that's something we should be aware of and watch.
And yeah, in my mind, Mike, it's, you know, that very starter of that conversation is, what are the 3 things to improve your unit? You know, and that's, in my mind, you're kind of insinuating, look, there's nobody that's perfect out there. There's no unit that's perfect. What would you do to improve your unit?
Right.
Yep. Solid words. Solid words. I do appreciate that. Well, folks, we've been on here now for 45 minutes. You're certainly welcome to stay. But let's say that the formal part of the evening is over. Now we can go do other activities, perhaps together. We'll see you next month, second Tuesday, same time. Thank you very much. Good night.